The moment my parents walked out of my wedding saying "You're on your own," I thought my life was over. But when the President of the United States took my hand and whispered what he said next, everything changed forever. Hi, I'm Harper, and I'm about to tell you the most unbelievable story of betrayal, heartbreak, and revenge that will leave you speechless. Because what started as the worst day of my life, being abandoned by my own parents at my wedding, ended with me discovering a secret so shocking, it would destroy their perfect little world forever. But let me paint you the scene first. Picture this: the grand ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Chicago, crystal chandeliers casting golden light over 300 guests, white roses and peonies everywhere, and me, 25-year-old Harper Montenegro, standing in a custom Vera Wang gown that took 8 months to make. This should have been the perfect fairy tale wedding. Should have been. But fairy tales don't usually include parents who destroy their daughter's happiness because she didn't marry the man they chose. You see, my fiancé Marcus wasn't what my parents had in mind for their only daughter. He was a public school teacher, drove a 10-year-old Camry, and lived in a modest apartment in Lincoln Park. But he was kind, genuine, and loved me for who I was, not for my trust fund or my family's pharmaceutical empire. My parents, Richard and Victoria Montenegro, had other plans. Plans that involved Bradford Ashworth III, heir to a banking fortune, whose family yacht probably cost more than most people's houses. The morning of my wedding, as I was getting my hair done in the bridal suite, my mother walked in wearing her ice blue Chanel suit and the expression she usually reserved for firing employees. "Harper," she said, not even looking at me in the mirror, "this is your last chance to make the right decision." I caught her eye in the reflection. "What do you mean?" "Marry Bradford. He's waiting downstairs. We can make the announcement, apologize to the guests for the confusion, and you can have the life you were meant to have." I turned around in my chair, bobby pins still hanging loose in my hair. "Are you insane? I'm getting married in 2 hours. To Marcus. The man I love." My father appeared in the doorway, his face granite hard. "Then you're making the biggest mistake of your life, Harper. And we won't be here to watch you destroy your future." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because I thought they were bluffing. "You're not serious." My mother's smile was colder than Chicago in January. "Dead serious. Marry that teacher, and you're no longer our daughter. No trust fund, no family support, no safety net. You'll be completely on your own." They walked out of that bridal suite and left me sitting there, half my hair still undone, staring at my reflection in shocked silence. But you know what? I made a choice that day that would change everything. I married Marcus anyway. The ceremony was beautiful despite the 2 empty seats in the front row where my parents should have been sitting. Marcus held my hands as we exchanged vows, his eyes full of tears, whispering "You're the strongest woman I know" when I told him what had happened. But here's where the story gets interesting, and trust me, you're going to want to stay for this part because what happened at the reception will blow your mind. We were just finishing our first dance when I noticed a commotion near the entrance. The hotel security team was talking intensely into their earpieces, and suddenly the entire ballroom went quiet. That's when I saw them. Men in dark suits with serious expressions, scanning the room with the kind of alertness that makes your skin prickle. Secret Service. And then he walked in. President James Mitchell, flanked by his security detail, making his way through our wedding reception like this was completely normal. Marcus nearly dropped me mid-dip. Our guests were pulling out their phones, whispering, some actually fainting. And me? I was frozen, watching the most powerful man in America walk straight toward us. "Harper Montenegro," he said, extending his hand with that famous presidential smile. Congratulations on your wedding. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but I had to meet the young woman who's been making such waves in Washington. I shook his hand, completely speechless. Making waves? I was a graduate student in biochemistry who spent most of my time in labs. What waves? Mr. President, I finally managed. I think there's been some mistake. I'm nobody important. His laugh was warm, genuine. Oh, Miss Montenegro, excuse me, Mrs. Harper, you're far more important than you realize. In fact, I have something that belongs to you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope with the presidential seal. Your grandfather left specific instructions that this should be delivered to you on your wedding day, but only if you chose love over money. And from what I understand, that's exactly what you did today. My grandfather? But he'd died when I was 15, and I'd barely known him. He'd been estranged from the family for years before his death, something about a falling out with my father over business ethics. President Mitchell handed me the envelope. Dr. Eduardo Montenegro was one of my closest advisors during my first campaign. A brilliant man who saw corruption coming from miles away. Inside was a letter in my grandfather's familiar handwriting, along with legal documents that would change my life forever. My dearest Harper, if you're reading this, it means you chose love over greed, just like I hoped you would. Your parents don't know about this trust, and they never will unless they force your hand. I've been watching Richard destroy everything our family built through his pharmaceutical schemes, and I won't let him destroy you too. But that wasn't the shocking part. Oh no. The shocking part came in the next paragraph, the Montenegro pharmaceutical fortune they think they control? It was never theirs. I transferred everything into an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary, managed by my friend James Mitchell. The company, the patents, the offshore accounts, all of it belongs to you now. Richard has been running a company he doesn't actually own for the past 10 years. $250 million. That's what the documents said. $250 million that my parents thought belonged to them, but actually belonged to me. The president leaned closer, lowering his voice. There's more, Harper. Your grandfather documented everything, your father's illegal price manipulation, the bribes to FDA officials, the cover-ups of dangerous side effects. He's been building a case for years, waiting for the right moment to expose it all. I looked up at this man who'd just handed me the power to destroy my parents' entire world, and I made the second life-changing decision of the day. What do I need to do? The next morning, while Marcus and I should have been on our honeymoon in Tuscany, I was instead sitting in a federal courthouse with a team of prosecutors, signing papers that would bring down my father's pharmaceutical empire. You see, my grandfather hadn't just left me money. He'd left me evidence. Spreadsheets showing how my father had been marking up insulin prices by 3,000%. Audio recordings of him bribing government officials. Internal memos covering up clinical trial deaths. For 10 years, my father had been getting rich off people's suffering, thinking he was untouchable because of his wealth and connections. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail: he didn't actually own the company he was destroying. The raids happened simultaneously. FBI agents walking into Montenegro Pharmaceutical headquarters while others served warrants at my parents' Lake Forest mansion. Their faces when they realized their own daughter had orchestrated their downfall? Priceless. My mother called me 17 times that first day. 17 desperate calls I didn't answer. My father tried a different approach. He showed up at Marcus's apartment building, screaming about betrayal and family loyalty until security escorted him out. But here's the beautiful part about justice: it has a way of snowballing. Within 48 hours, the pharmaceutical price-fixing scandal was front-page news. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, everyone was covering the Montenegro betrayal story. The daughter who brought down her own family's criminal empire. I watched from our honeymoon suite in Italy as my father was led away in handcuffs, my mother hiding her face behind designer sunglasses that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The company stock plummeted 90% in a single day. But wait, because this story has a twist ending that nobody saw coming, not even me. 3 months later, I got a call from my family's attorney. Bradford Ashworth III, you remember, the banking heir my parents wanted me to marry, had been arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Turns out, my parents' perfect choice for their daughter had been stealing from his own family's bank for years. The FBI had found evidence of him funneling money to offshore accounts, including several payments to Richard Montenegro for consulting services. My parents hadn't just wanted me to marry Bradford for his money. They'd been in business with him, using his bank to launder their illegal pharmaceutical profits. My wedding day rejection hadn't just cost them a daughter, it had cost them their partner in crime. Today, Marcus and I live in our grandfather's restored Victorian mansion on the Gold Coast, the one my father thought he'd inherit someday. The Montenegro Foundation, which I now run, provides free medications to low-income families, the exact opposite of what my father spent years doing. My parents both pleaded guilty to federal charges. My father got 15 years in federal prison. My mother got 8. The woman who told me I'd be on my own is now truly alone herself, in a federal facility in Kentucky. But you want to know the most satisfying part of this whole revenge story? Last month, I got a letter from my father in prison. 3 pages of apologies, begging for forgiveness, asking if I could help with his legal fees since all their assets had been seized. You know what I did with that letter? Pause for maximum impact, I framed it. It hangs in my office right next to a photo of President Mitchell handing me those documents at my wedding reception. A reminder that sometimes, when you choose love over money, the universe rewards you in ways you never could have imagined. My parents told me I'd be on my own. They were right, in a way. I am on my own now, on my own terms, with my own fortune, making my own choices, and using my power to help people instead of exploit them. But here's the twist ending I promised you, the one that will leave you speechless. Bradford Ashworth III? The banking heir I was supposed to marry? His family's bank was the same institution my grandfather had been secretly working with for years to document my father's crimes. Bradford never knew that when he was embezzling money, he was actually stealing from accounts my grandfather had set up as evidence traps. My grandfather had orchestrated the entire thing. He'd known about Bradford's crimes, known about my parents' pressure for me to marry him, and had been waiting for years to spring the perfect trap. When I chose Marcus over Bradford, I wasn't just choosing love over money. I was choosing freedom over a life sentence, because if I'd married Bradford, I would have been implicated in both families' criminal enterprises. The man my parents said would secure my future would have destroyed it completely. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to people who hurt you. Sometimes it's building a life so beautiful, so meaningful, so genuinely happy that their opinion of your choices becomes completely irrelevant. My parents wanted me to marry for money and status. Instead, I married for love and ended up with more money and status than they ever dreamed of. Plus something they never had, integrity. They said I'd be on my own. They were absolutely right. And being on my own has been the greatest gift they ever gave me. Because when you're truly on your own, nobody can take that power away from you. Ever. Ending twist: the shocking revelation that Bradford Ashworth III was not only a criminal but that Harper's grandfather had orchestrated everything, including knowing about Bradford's crimes and using them as part of his long-term plan to expose both families. Harper unknowingly avoided not just a bad marriage, but criminal prosecution by choosing love over money.